Today's episode, I sit down with the father of Rick, a 14-year-old navigating life in a blended family while also managing ADHD. We get into the challenges of parenting in two different households, how to balance structure with flexibility, and the dad guilt that can creep in when enforcing rules. We also talk about strategies like front-loading transitions, keeping consistent expectations, and how medication has made a real difference for Rick at home and school. This is a powerful conversation about parenting through complexity, staying steady, and helping kids feel both supported and heard.
Welcome to the ADHD Parenting Podcast with Mike McLeod of Grow Now ADHD and Ryan Wexelblatt of ADHD Dude. Learn about parenting kids with ADHD from a licensed clinical social worker and speech-language pathologist who specializes in ADHD. No fluffy parenting advice, only practical information that will equip you to help your child with ADHD effectively.
All right, I am here with the father of Rick, who is 14 and in 8th grade. And why don't you start off by telling us a little about your family and what would take priority in terms of what you wanted to discuss today?
We have a blended family. Rick's mom and I got divorced when he was probably 6 or 7 years old. In the household, we've got 4 kids. Rick has an 11-year-old sister, and then he also has an 11-year-old stepsister and a 14-year-old stepbrother. The kids have all known each other since they were like pre-K in kindergarten. So I think for us, one of the biggest struggles is Rick kind of understanding who he is. And socially, I think it's always a struggle because he feels like he's singled out in terms of, well, why is it I have screen time limitations, but the other kids in the family don't? How come, I have to go out and, run around outside for an hour or 2 hours and the other kids, don't have to do that? So, it really becomes a little bit of a struggle in terms of socialization in the household. And that's sort of the biggest strain that we see right now.
Okay, so one thing I just want to clarify for everyone, typically when I talk about socialization, I talk about it with similar age peers, not with family. And the reason why is because sometimes parents will say things like, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, but in general, people will say things like, I want him to use better social skills with his sister. And what I always want people to understand is that when we're talking in the context of social skills, it has nothing to do with your family, because family is who you can be yourself around, and there's no social ramifications for, annoying your sister or your brother, right? Or if you, blow up at anyone in your family. So I think, and tell me if this is accurate, I think what you're talking about is more about Rick feeling a little singled out because there's a certain set of expectations for him that are not applicable to the other kids.
Correct. Like the 14-year-old stepbrother is, sort of has that trifecta. He's an athlete, he's a scholar, and he's very well liked amongst his friend group. On the other hand, Rick, isn't as athletic, isn't as scholarly, and isn't as sociable. So that a lot of times it's for me, the father, how do I manage that? How do I have that conversation with him?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me ask this first. Have you guys ever discussed, and I don't, there's no right or wrong answer to this. I'm just wondering kind of where, if you guys have discussed this is, does there need to be more structure at all? Or would it be helpful to have, maybe a little more consistency amongst all the kids so Rick doesn't feel like he's being, singled out because he has ADHD?
Totally great point. And a lot of the stuff that we've implemented in the house have come directly out of your podcast. I'm a huge fan of your podcast.
Thank you.
And it's been completely eye-opening for me and for the household. And so it really has helped me lean into my parental authority. It's helped me put structure, we've always had structure in the house, but it was getting comfortable and being okay with there being structure in the house. And so the issue that I often see is that all of the kids have structure. They're all expected to do the same thing: reading, limiting screen time, going to bed at a reasonable hour, doing extracurricular activities. But a lot of times Rick doesn't see it. He's not aware enough to know that, hey, you're not being singled out, dude. Everybody's getting the same treatment. You just aren't seeming to notice it. And we've gotten to the point where we've even made it known, hey, did you see us disciplining your stepbrother or your stepsister? Like we just had that conversation with them. So you're aware that you're not the only one that gets treated this way.
Okay, so one of the things I'm wondering is maybe Rick is aware of this, and and I think it's great that you're explicitly pointing it out to him. And maybe he just doesn't like it, and this is his way of making noise, which is my term for venting or complaining, for the sake of venting or complaining.
Correct. I think that there's a part of this where there could be some possibly inadvertent manipulation going on, maybe feeling like, hey, I'm like the bad step kid, right? I'm like the black sheep. I'm not treated fairly. And so oftentimes that narrative of Rick being treated differently than the other kids, even though we don't feel like he is being treated differently, that narrative will often go back to the other household, Remy's mom. And that's what he will tell the other household, is that it's unfair. I'm treated a certain way, but no one else is treated that way. And so we really are trying hard to make it clear that you're not being treated differently. And the times that you are being treated differently, it's so that we can meet you where you're at with your ADHD.
Right. Okay. So I am confident that you have explained that clearly to him, and he has heard that multiple times and has internalized it. And is it possible that he just doesn't like it? And he just needs to vent about it, whether that's, to you or to his mother?
I think it is. Yeah, I do think it's like that because in the other household, there isn't the same level of structure. And during office hours, you and I have talked about this, where it's
Right.
sort of been more specific to control what you can control in your household. If you can only do what you can do in your household, and that's the structure that Rick needs. And when he goes back to his mom's house, that structure it's not there. It's not the same household. But over time, the hope is that Rick will understand that that structure was something that was very helpful for him while he was growing up and managing his ADHD.
Yeah. I think he absolutely will understand, but that might not be for a long time. And when I say a long time, I'm talking about, after he's, graduated from high school. So let's talk about this. What would happen if you just, when he says things, about this, you acknowledge him and just say, I hear how you feel, and leave it at that, and don't get into a further discussion about it. How would he react to that?
I think that's been one of those lessons that I learned from your podcast, which is not getting into that argument negotiation vortex, and it's been really positive. Where I struggle, Ryan, is the guilt, the internal guilt that I have as a father in thinking to myself, oh, he hates being in my house. Like he doesn't want to be here. He feels like it's unfair. And so oftentimes, I guess I feel myself wanting to kind of maybe let things slide a little bit and maybe let things go so he can feel like he's getting something
Yeah.
that he might not normally get. And a lot of times my wife will remind me, hey, you got to stay on top of this with Rick. Like if you give him too much screen time, a lot of times that manifests itself in acting out and bad behavior
Yes.
and, resistance to doing expectations. But
Yes.
a lot of it really comes into me managing my own dad guilt with how Rick feels.
Yeah. And I also want to point out on top of this, you're also spread thin with three other kids in the house, you know. And I think, we need to acknowledge that. I mean, this is a lot for anybody. And I have no question I would feel the same way. Particularly if I had to have, a different structure and different expectations for, one of my four kids. So I guess one of the things I'm wondering, and tell me what, you think about this, is I'm wondering if you can have a conversation, just you and him, and talk about, and basically, share what you just shared, that it's hard for you sometimes because, you want you want all the kids to be treated equally, and you understand that, you do need to do certain things differently with him to help him learn to manage his ADHD. That's going to benefit him over the long term, which he fully can't understand right now, right? Because he's 14 and he can't, visualize the future. But I'm wondering if that could be, a discussion where you can say to him, look, I would like to be, have some more flexibility with some things, and I want your input on them because I value, what you think and what you have to say. And obviously I want you to be happy. So, here's the things that there is not flexibility with. There's not flexibility with screen time, but there could be flexibility with A, B, and C. So which one of those, would you like some more flexibility with? So, what I'm saying is, open the discussion to him so you can do some collaborative problem solving and maybe give him a little more leeway in an area that will not have detrimental effects for him or for the rest of the family.
That's a great idea, and that's something that kind of again taking a cue from the scaffolding and bringing him into a conversation. That was something that we did about 4 weeks ago. Was having that conversation with. I understand that there are some things here that you don't like. What are some of the things that you don't like? And there were things that was like, hey, this is a non-negotiable. But here are things that I think you should consider working on, in terms of how can we develop a better relationship with our step siblings and our sibling? Like, what are some actions that you can do that you can start to build back some of that trust with them and start working on those relationships? And I sort of put together not just a contract that outlines if you do these things, but also a second page that has these things listed. And you should actively put like a tick mark by them when you feel like you've done that. What are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like a lot of times these conversations go like, we'll talk about it, but it's kind of in one ear, out the other. And I think that's the nature of ADHD is that you'll talk with him about it, but he'll kind of forget it by the time the next transition period rolls around and he's back in the household. So I want something more permanent that he can look at and be reminded that, okay, like I'm working at achieving this goal in 8 weeks. And to get to this goal, I've got to do these things consistently over the next 8 weeks. Is that too much?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm gonna put myself in Rick's shoes for a minute, okay? If you came to me with that, I would say, here's just another thing that's wrong with me that my father's telling me I need to improve on. And the reason why is because it's basically, I think from his perspective, it feels like, right, this is all things that I have to do, to change and to improve. What I'm trying to convey is that I think it would be good to have a discussion with him that you would like to, make room for, his voice to be heard a little more because developmentally at 14, that is important. And come at it from the perspective of, why don't you, give, list for me 3 things that you would like differently with the understanding that screen time is non-negotiable. So instead of you telling him, right, this is what you need to improve, or these are things you can improve, you want to come at this from the angle of, I want to respect that, you're becoming a young man and I want to be able to give you some more freedom. And let's talk about ways that could happen that that we both could be okay with, right? So instead of saying, here's the problem that you have to work on, let's work on this together. And it's not about you changing your behavior. It's me, giving you a little more freedom because I want to respect where you're at. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Our custody agreement is 1 week on, 1 week off. So he's gone for a week and then he comes back. How do I kind of remind him of that? How do we kind of re-engage that mindset? What do you recommend?
Yeah. So 2 things. I would set what day does he usually come back?
Wednesdays.
Okay. So I would send him a text Wednesday morning and just, I hope you have a good day in school. Looking forward to seeing you this afternoon. Just a reminder that, what we had talked about was that, if you want some more, whatever, you want some more, free time, then this is what needs to happen when you get home. So we want to just kind of do that front loading in the morning, reminding him, because what that's also doing is it's helping to prepare him for the transition, several hours before he gets back. Because we do want him to get in that, mind shift that like, oh, right, now there's going to be more structure happening this afternoon, and this is what I need to be thinking about. So I can tell you, with my son, I mean, I always for transitions like that, I mean, I always had to start kind of front loading with him 2 to 3 days in advance because I knew there was going to be issues, whether that was going back to school after a vacation or whatever it might have been. If for instance, if I knew that he was going to have to do something on a Saturday he didn't want to do, I would start talking about it on Thursday, and not really talking about it, just little reminders like that to kind of prepare him.
That's great. That's a great reminder of how to use front loading.
So let me just go back though to the conversation for a minute because I think we were talking a little bit about two different things and I just wanted to make sure you understood where I was coming from that I want this to feel to Rick like he's getting more of a voice here, and not that he has to work towards something in terms of relationships. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
And just keep in mind, for any 14-year-old, whether it's our family or not, we don't always, at 14, you really don't have the relationship skills yet to kind of self-reflect and necessarily think, okay, these are all the things that I need to do to improve relationships. And particularly with your family, you don't always have the motivation to do that because, like I mentioned at the beginning, family's who you can be yourself around, So I think what I'm saying is I would stay away from that topic for the time being, with him, and because again, it's not helping him feel heard if we try to say like these are things that you need to work on, and I think from what you're saying, part of what I'm hearing is that he doesn't like feeling singled out. So the way we can help him with that is to help him feel that his what he wants is being heard, and that you're willing to work with that, and that's also modeling flexibility for him.
That makes sense. That's a really good point.
Just for my clarification, are typically Wednesdays the most difficult day during the week?
Yeah, they are. It's typically Wednesdays and Thursdays. I would always sort of compare it to like you're kind of breaking him of old habits when he comes
Yes.
back.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your communication with him when he's at his mother's house. Like, do you text him? Do you call him? Like, what kind of happens?
There's really not a lot of communication at all.
Okay. All right. So one thing I'm going to suggest is, and this is, more from your end, is I would text him once a day when he's at his mother's. Okay.
Okay.
Text or call. And well, I would actually do both. Okay. I would text him in the morning, just, hi, hope you have a good day at school. And then, in the afternoon, or at night, give him a call, just say, hey, how was school? I wouldn't get into discussions about homework, really, unless he asks or unless you feel like it's essential. And here's why I'm telling you to do this. So there's this concept, we call it Vigilant Care, which means that kids feel their parents' presence when they're not with them. And I'm wondering if part of the difficulties with Wednesday and Thursday is that he's not feeling your presence enough when he's not with you. Okay. And granted, we can't control what goes on at his mother's house, but he can know that you're thinking of him and he can feel your presence. And I think by doing that, I think it's actually going to help make the transition easier because he's going to feel more that you're with him even when you're not. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, and I think this is part of the difficulty with I mean, look, the transition could be difficult for any kid, ADHD or not. It just so happens to be more difficult for kids with ADHD when there's two very different structures in two different homes, But particularly for his age, yeah, I think he needs to feel your presence more when he's not with you.
That's a great idea, Ryan.
Yeah, so I would say that just, quick text in the morning, and, and if he doesn't respond, that's okay. The goal with this is for him to understand you're thinking about him when you're not with him, so that's why, I was saying quick text in the morning, call or text, afternoon, evening. And then, Wednesday morning, just say, hey, here's what's happening today, when you get back, or, this is what the rest of the week or the weekend looks like for you or for the family, whatever. So we're just putting that kind of additional front loading in, on Wednesdays to help prepare him for the transition.
That's great. Yeah. I get him back tomorrow. So I'm going to just start doing that like this afternoon, give him a call after school and then then start tomorrow morning with a text. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Ryan.
And if he says like, why are you calling me or texting me so much? Just say, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. That's all.
Yep.
Doesn't have to go beyond that. Yeah.
That's great.
Other things that would be helpful to discuss?
I guess not really, other than just giving you mad kudos
Thank you.
for kind of everything that you've done. I think, one of the things that I advocated for was getting him on a stimulant, which we just got him on a stimulant back in November. And a lot of that was, pointing me in the direction of Dr. Russell Barkley and learning about stimulants and the science behind it, and then advocating for him. And because I just felt like something wasn't right. Like the medication that he was on just was not, it wasn't helping. It wasn't, we're still getting the reports from school. And
I remember
ever
this
since
during
he's,
office hours. I think you brought this up.
yeah, ever
Yeah,
since like he's been on a stimulant, the disturbances at school have just plummeted.
that's
Like I
great.
don't get negative reports anymore. It really has been a very positive finding. Frankly, I stumbled upon your podcast like, 6 months, a year ago, and just started listening like just voraciously, just sucking up all the information. And it's really changed how I manage Rick's ADHD. It's completely given me the confidence I need to parent him in a way that I truly think he's enjoying much more than I did it before.
Good. I'm really happy to hear that. I want to know what he's had to say about himself in regards to the meds. Does he feel better about himself? Does he say it's easier to pay attention? Like, what feedback has he given you, if any?
Yes, he has. Like he said, like now that I'm on a stimulant, like I would often use the words impulsive and reactive to describe his behavior. And he has now understood that the stimulant helps him with that impulsivity, with that reactivity. And he said that back to me. Like I've noticed that when I'm like in class, like I can focus on things more. Like I can stop myself before I do these things.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been
Wow.
huge.
That's great. And tell me, is he taking it on the weekends?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And a lot of that was, again, because of the research on kind of brain development and kind of neuroplasticity that came out of Dr. Barkley. Like,
Yes.
there's like absolutely having him on that has helped at home in terms of his compliance with just asking him to do the same things that we're asking the other kids to do, but now asking him to take out the trash or recycling or read for an hour. Like, it's like, okay, like I'll get that taken care of. It's like total world of difference.
Good. I'm really happy to hear that. That's great.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great, Ryan.
Good. Any other questions for me?
No, I don't think so. I really appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation, and I'll keep listening.
Good. Yeah, and thank you so much. And yeah, I'll be curious, to hear when you start, reaching out to him, when he's at his mother's, if you find that to be helpful, because I have a sense it really will be.
I think so too.
All right. It was great talking to you.
Thanks. You too,
All
Ryan.
right. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about Mike's practice, Grow Now ADHD, please visit his website, grownowadhd.com. To learn about the services Ryan provides, please visit adhddude.com. You can find Mike on Instagram at grownowadhd and Ryan on the ADHD Dude YouTube channel. We'd love to hear your feedback or questions, so feel free to contact us at the ADHD Parenting Podcast at gmail.com. The ADHD Parenting Podcast and content posted by Grow Now ADHD or ADHD Dude are presented solely for general information and educational purposes. Our goal is to provide valuable insights and knowledge, not to replace professional services. Mike and Ryan cannot provide clinical consultation or free advice through social media or other forms of communication. The information on this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. If you or your child have any medical or mental health concerns, please consult your healthcare professionals.